And here we go. I'm recording the event. So for those of you who are here as our attendees, I'm here with 3 co-housing communities, and I'll be introducing them in a moment. My name is Carolyn, and I work for the Foundation for Intentional Community as the online event coordinator. And I am going to be introducing the FIC and our communities today, as well as being your background host. So for those of you who have any questions or need any assistance during the event, you can message me and I'll help you. I'm going to get us started today by doing a little introduction slides. Let me get those going. I'm going to share my screen. I was having an interesting experience earlier with this. So here we go. Let's see if I can present. Oh no. There we go. Loading. And here we are. So, like I said earlier, we are talking about co-housing, and we're going to meet a few communities today, which I am so excited to see about. So to get us started, we have some Zoom basics for those of you new to Zoom. If you haven't been Zooming during the pandemic, lucky you. You do have a few buttons that are helpful. We have our participants button and our chat button. The chat button, you'll be able to talk to either just the panelists or to the panelists and attendees. And the participant button, I'll show you an important thing with that in just a second. When you are wanting to chat, you have the option to pick the attendees, panelists, or specific people. It's in a little drop-down menu. So I already invited some of you to give us your name and location. If you already live in a community, you can share that. And also, what do you hope to learn from, or get out of this session? So we always love seeing where everyone's coming from and what brought them here. So please feel free to drop that in the chat. And we highly encourage you to use the chat option. It's such a great option. For the participants button, it allows you to do the raise your hand option. So since we're in a webinar format, I actually can't see all of you, sadly enough. And so when you do have a question and we want to come to the front, we'll pull you in. You would raise your hand with the raise your hand button, and then it'll pop up so I can know that you're doing that, and I can bring you into the screen. We do have some special announcements coming up. So for those of you who are searching for a community, we do have our communities directory available with a 10% discount for those of you who are in here. And I'll drop some of these links into the chat as we go forward. But it's a 10% discount off of our communities directory. So the whole online directory is there, but if you're a bibliophile like myself, I really like physical copies. I like being able to write in them. And so we do print them out. And you're able to access those at ic.org/directory-book. And if you use find-community, that's your 10% off. If you want to go all the way, we do have a whole little package where it gives us the best communities. You get the community directory, finding community book, and one of the community magazines for finding or starting a community. And so that little package is such a sweet thing. If you know anybody who is looking for community, it's a great gift for the holiday season. And you also get 10% off of that package using find-community, which is also the URL for the books. And we're so excited. We have some t-shirts and we even have masks and bags not shown here so that you can wear and help support our mission. I really love that I've seen it all. I've lived in a commune one. I haven't lived in a commune, but that shirt makes me giggle every time. I love these. I think they're great. And it's really fun and sweet way to help support our mission. I'll also drop this link into the chat as we are moving forward. And of course, we have some upcoming events. One of those events is tomorrow. We have Returning to the Land. It's a BIPOC in conversation about community and self-determination. So we have a panel of people, Black, Indigenous, people of color coming to speak about community and their experiences. I'm very, very excited to see it. We already have, I think, 150 people signed up. So it's going to be an amazing event. And that's tomorrow from 4 to 6 Eastern Standard Time. And then next week, we have one of our board members, Crystal Farmer, with her book, The Token, Common Sense Ideas for Increasing Diversity in Your Organization. She's going to be doing an interview with us, and that'll just be an hour long, and that'll be next Tuesday. And of course, like I said at the top of the hour, we do record all of these events. So if you're wanting to see this later or wanting to catch these links later, you will get the recording in your email tomorrow. And we do have recordings from previous events at ic.org/recordings where you can go and rent or purchase them. So I invite you to remove your distractions, get a beverage, any note-taking stuff that you might need, and to center yourself and join us for the next 2 hours as we peruse these beautiful co-housing communities. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And I'm going to do a small little introduction about co-housing. So the co-housing movement started around, I think, the 1960s, and it came out of Denmark. And the idea is, it's kind of like a modified HOA in a sense. It's the idea of having collective houses, or like everyone has their individual houses, but to share common spaces, like a common house, common walkways and open spaces and gardens. Sometimes it includes common laundry spaces and recreational spaces. And so it's the ability to create community in something that, and the way I feel about it is that in places that already have a lot of people. And so you're able to not just take the people in your neighborhood and live next to them, but you actually get to create this community. You share meals together, you share your buildings together, you might share chores together. Create co-ops. Which I think is a really beautiful way to live. And it's some of the things that I love about living in a co-living building. So we get to do these things in a micro way where I live. And I live in Dancing Rabbit Eco Village right now. And so for those of you who know, I'm out in Northeast Missouri. What we'll be doing today for our agenda is we're going to have each community introduce themselves, do an 8-minute presentation, and then we'll have 5 minutes of questions. So if you have questions while they're presenting, write them down, put them in the chat, or when we do them, you can raise your hand. And what we'll do is we'll do 8 minutes, 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 5 minutes until we get through the 3 communities. And then we will do a few panel questions and then have you able to actually ask any other unique questions you have at the end. So make sure you stay to the end to be able to ask those burning questions. We're going to go through the 3 communities. We're going to start with Rocky Corner, we'll head over to Heartwood, and then we'll end up finally at Washington Commons. So I'm going to let us get started by introducing Marie with Rocky Corner and have her take over and give us all the information about a beautiful community.
Thank you, Carolyn. Welcome, everybody.
Oh, Marie, I don't think we can hear you.
Well, I unmuted.
Oh, there you are. I hear you. You're good.
Okay.
You're good to go.
Maybe there was a delay. Sorry. Thanks,
okay.
Carolyn. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to share my screen. I have a little PowerPoint to use, which I don't see here, of course. So let me try again. Of course, it worked before, right?
It worked before, and it's Zoom, so we have to have our tech issues. It's totally fine.
There it is. Okay.
There you go. Perfect. We can see you.
Okay. So I took slides from an info session that we do regularly. Are you guys seeing the extra things at the top and in the middle there? Maybe not. Can you hear me?
Yes. You are good. Yes, we can hear you. We're doing great.
Okay. So so Rocky Corner will be the first co-housing community in the state of Connecticut. There's quite a few in New England, but we are presently under construction. So one of the things that I wanted to share with you all is why I'm going to be a future resident there. I definitely want to live in a neighborhood with people who know me and care about me. I want to live more sustainably in a smaller, energy efficient home. I want to live on land where we can grow our own food together. And I want to live on land that we can conserve for native plants, animals, and insects. And I'm one of the people that's been involved for a very long time. So fortunately, everything I've wanted is coming to pass. I did want to point out a few things that are very unique to Rocky Corner because all co-housing communities are quite different. Um, and I picked out three things. Our vision, which is a statement that defines the values of the community, our governance, which is sociocracy, and our property. We're actually growing up, building on 33 organic acres of land. So here's just a few statements from our vision statement. If you want to read the entire statement, it's on our website, but I picked out a few. Rocky Corner is a vibrant co-housing neighborhood. We nourish respectful relationships among our members, as well as with the natural environment and the wider community. This is a recent Zoom session we had, and you can see we're becoming quite a diverse group, which we're very proud of in terms of age and ethnicity. We are committed to equal access to power and decision-making. And our primary way of attaining this goal is by using sociocracy. This is a meeting we had when we were coming up with our work policy. We strive to balance farming and community life with preservation of wildlife habitats. That's very important to us. We consider the Rocky Corner community, the wider human community, and the health of the earth when making decisions and choices. So one of the things that we always ask people to do when they're considering joining our community is to read the vision statement and see if it really speaks to you. I mean, that's one of the ways you figure out that this is a place that you want to live if you have the same values that we do. I wanted to talk a little bit about sociocracy. This is a book written by Ted Rao and Jerry Koch Gonzalez of Pioneer Valley Co-housing. They've been working on this governance model called sociocracy for quite a few years now. And we as a community actually got trained in it in 2012 when we found that consensus decision-making was difficult for us. So what's great about sociocracy is that decisions are based on a very clear pattern of discussion. Work, in other words, for us, the creation of the community is very well organized under the sociocracy model. And we've come up with meetings that are very effective and efficient. If you wanted to break sociocracy down into kind of three parts, we have the structure of the organization, kind of like the organizational chart of a business. We have this consent decision-making format that we follow that allows everybody to have an equal voice. And then we work into every decision or every proposal that we have a feedback loop. In other words, a way of going back and evaluating it and making sure that things are working the way we want them to. The other thing that's just really exciting about our project is that we purchased a 33-acre former dairy farm. And when we purchased it a number of years ago, the original house was still on the property. That's what you see at the bottom of the picture. It was a house built in 1740, and unfortunately we couldn't save it. It was crumbling, so we did have it deconstructed. And the card at the top is the business card of the father of the last woman who lived on the property. So Rocky Corner is the historical name for this area in the small town of Bethany, north of New Haven. And we decided to use that name for our co-housing. This is an aerial view of the land. So one of the things I loved about this land is not only how large it is, but also that it didn't have many trees that we had to cut down to build our homes and our common house, because it was mainly pasture land. And it's directly west of a water authority property that allows hiking and cross-country skiing and horseback riding. So we feel like we have recreation right outside our door. This was a rendering done by Appleseed Permaculture, which was a group that we hired early on to help us evaluate the land and decide where things should be. And they were the ones that helped us decide where the buildings should be built, which is kind of at the rise of the land, the top of the land. And this is the way the community looks right now under construction. So we're going to have 30 homes. The red building over to the upper left is our common house. And you can see how wooded it is around the homes, but a lot of it is open space for farming and other things that we want to do together. So if you want to learn more about us, we have a website. You can sign up for our newsletter on the website. You can also email us to attend an info session or arrange a tour. We're doing virtual and live tours by appointment. So that's the email address that you can contact us if you want to.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That looks so beautiful. I'm so excited to see all the buildings. So right now, after the presentation, we have about 5 minutes. So if anyone from the audience has a specific question that they want to ask Marie about Rocky Corner, please go ahead. You can raise your hand. We always love the raise your hand option. We can pull you into the webinar, or you can type it into the chat and we can pick you up there. So I'll give you just a second if anyone wants to raise their hand. And again, it's that participants button. Oh, we have a question. When did you first start meeting and planning?
So I joke that when we started this project, I was in my 40s and now I'm in my 60s. And I think that's pretty typical of co-housing communities, that it takes many years to pull it together. So I joined in 2006 when there was a co-housing group in the city of New Haven looking into building. And this was kind of an offshoot of that group. We became the kind of rural, the rural offshoot compared to building right in the city. So I've been involved for a long time. You know, it's not an easy project. We made some decisions that certainly have slowed us down, but we hope will ultimately be good. One of the decisions we made was to have affordable housing. So 13 of our units are designated affordable, and we got a grant from the state. But unfortunately, that means a lot of extra fingers trying to control what's going on. So it's really made it a much more difficult project. I guess that would answer her question, or whoever.
Yeah,
whoever
absolutely.
asked. So that's how long. We have newbies though. People here only a few months.
Wonderful. Someone did mention about the financial aspect. What's the cost of living there?
Well, that's still other than the affordable units, which have set prices, which right now all those units have been sold. The market rate units, we actually don't know exactly how those will turn out to be, but they're in the $350,000 to $450,000 range, and we're very upset about that. But the longer it takes to build a community, the more the expense is, and that has to be shared by all the homeowners, because that's how we're dividing up the cost of the project.
Great. There's a couple of questions about aging. So, are you age targeted, and is there aging in place provided, like amenities?
We have always wanted to be multi-age, and at this point in time, we're finally getting more families with children involved, I think because we're so close to moving in. So right now we range in age from 3 to probably 80-ish. And what was the second part, Carolyn?
About aging in place. Like, are there aging in place?
Yeah, so the design of the homes is actually for aging in place. So all the homes are designed to have a bedroom on the first floor, wide doorways, so also very handicapped accessible. They were designed that way because we asked the architect to design them that way.
That's amazing. I'm going to do one more question. I see that we have a few more than that, but I'm going to just do one more. And it's talking about the property appears to be bisected by a road. Would you please touch on that?
Yeah, it is. We have 6 acres on the north side of a very small dead end country road. And that 6 acres is where our wells are.
Mm.
And we're thinking of leaving that 6 acres completely wild,
Oh, wow.
um, which would be really nice because we don't want to disturb too much of the property, which has happened with construction.
Mm.
And we also are um, giving easements to a good portion of the property to the land trust in town.
Oh, wonderful. I'm gonna log some of these other questions that have come up, and we'll answer them at the end, if they don't get answered before then.
Okay.
So thank you so much, Marie. That was
Yeah.
beautiful.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Mac, would you like to introduce us to Heartwood Cohousing?
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, excellent. Well, I want to thank Carolyn and Neil and Cynthia and FIC for all your work you guys do there. I mean, it's so good to support communities and host this event. So thank you very much for that. I will share my screen, and I've got a little PowerPoint as well. All right, everybody can see that?
Yeah, it looks great. Thank you.
Okay, good. All right, so um, Heartwood Cohousing. All right, some vital stats about us. We're located in Southwest Colorado. So that's us, the red dot. And here's Denver, Albuquerque, Phoenix, Salt Lake City. We're kind of in the middle of all that in the Four Corners region. No freeways anywhere around us, and we kind of like that. We were established in the year 2000. And in phase one, we had 24 homes. 8 of those are duplex, 16 single family detached. We've got 14 homes coming up in phase two, and that's coming soon. Hopefully within the next couple of years, we'll build that out. We have 361 acres, which might be the biggest co-housing community by acreage in the country. I'm not sure, but we've got a lot of acres. 65 acres is irrigated pasture land. About 285 is pine and juniper forest. And that leaves about a little less than 10 acres of developed land. And we are a multi-generational community. So what makes us special? What sets us apart from other co-housing communities? We are established and close-knit community. So that's a couple of different things. So established means that, over the 20 years, we've had a lot of time to figure out our decision-making, conflict resolution, finances, membership process, team coordination and work and delegation, all that kind of stuff. Close-knit, being a rural community, I think that lends to a real close-knit feeling within the community because, we can't just run out, in the evening to a show or something very easily. I mean, we do, but it's a half-hour drive to the big town of about 20,000. And so people, when they come home at the end of the day, they tend to, hang out together more and, take care of more of their social needs right on site. We also are just have a real commitment to having a real strong community fabric in our community. We have, 3 community meals a week. Well, normally, not during COVID. And these are some photos of our community. These are some of the kids. This was a few years ago, but at a high school graduation. And, we had a tribe when my kids grew up at Heartwood, maybe about 25 kids all together. And it was, those kids have stayed so close and so tight. And now they're in their early 20s, a lot of that wave of kids. And they've continued to be like brothers and sisters to each other. And then, this is a couple of my dear neighbors, Sarah and Gail. The community, the nature of the community is that I think we all respect and support each other and have that level of relationship, but then that sometimes and oftentimes goes much deeper to, to create these kind of deep friendships as well. let's see, this is our annual camp out that we do at Canyonlands National Park. There's probably about a half a dozen big, national parks within a few hours of us. This is a really fun camp out. We had to skip it for the first time in 25 years because of COVID this year. Another thing that sets us apart or makes us special, however you want to say that, we have very high quality, energy efficient homes. The homes are about 80% sustainably harvested lumber. They're all passive solar. And like I said, super energy efficient. I just looked this up recently. We live in a 4-season climate, lots of snow in the winter. And our house, my house, we used our natural gas bill for 2019 averaged $43 a month, which is, heating the home, heating the hot water, and for cooking. So I think that's pretty darn low. This is one of our straw bale homes. It's a owner-built timber frame straw bale home. It's our common house. This is the interior of one of the homes. Another shot. Okay, another thing that makes us special, we call it peaceful, easy feeling, which is, and I'll just go through a list here. So, we live, out in the country, so we have a really strong connection to nature. I mean, every window I look out of is nature out there, and the people in this part of the country. I mean, I think Colorado has a reputation of being the most fit state in the country. I mean, everybody, is hiking and skiing and boating and swimming and all that kind of stuff just as a regular part of life. It's calm, healthy, and low stress. We have virtually no crime in this area, virtually no traffic, clean mountain air. None of these homes have air conditioners. And we have over 300 days of sunshine per year. It's just, I've found it to be the most lovely, 4-season climate that I've ever lived in. So much sunshine and just really nice. Peace and quiet. And then kids are safe and free to roam. As soon as our youngest, he was born right in our house here. He's 20 years old now, but when he was born and as soon as he could walk, he would take off out the front door and we didn't even have to worry about him. He would just, be running all over the place, because we knew that every house had, caring eyes looking out the windows, keeping an eye on them, and just that it was safe, in general. And then community belonging. And that's something that, hopefully you get from every intentional community, every co-housing community, that creates that ease and peace in a person's life and their soul, to feel, to know that, I know that I belong to a tribe that cares about me, that loves me. We have gorgeous rural land and, the rural lifestyle. This is a picture of our land. We've got all this forested land. We've got about 7 miles of trails just on our land. We've got actually a tennis court, a dome greenhouse, chicken house, meditation yurt, hot tub, kids play structure, common house, workshop. This is obviously the housing cluster right there. Down here is our 65 acres of irrigated pasture land. We've got more greenhouses down here. Then way down here is the highway that, runs over here to the town of Durango on that side and the town of Bayfield just off the picture there. This is our annual turkey trot just before Thanksgiving, which is really just a hike around our land on one of our trails here. You can see obviously the housing cluster in the background here and the pastures down there. And now this is a shot from the south end of the property. This is our spring-fed pond down in the pasture looking up towards the north. One of our garden areas. And of course, pastures with horses, cows. Oh, and this is a herd of elk that we're passing through, hanging out down in our pasture on an obviously snowy winter day. Again, one of our greenhouses. We obviously like to grow, as much of our own food as possible. not only do we have, produce, but, the people that raise the cows and the pigs, they sell the meat to other community members. And this is harvesting some garlic out in the pasture area. Tennis court. This is our sledding hill. And this is a little, a sledding hill party. We got a bonfire going and some hot chocolate. This is a work party. I mean, work parties are just a great way to build community fabric. Here we are building the kids' play structure, the SS Ponderosa. And this is the SS Ponderosa after it's done. And, all the kids running around. And have I mentioned, what a wonderful place community is for, kids to grow up in. It's just heaven for kids. And then this is the village green again, right in the center of the community with a flock of wild turkeys passing through. This is our, central pathway in the community. And this is actually my house over here. And then because we live at 7,000 feet and we have, clear skies over 300 days a year and that, clean mountain air, we have incredible night skies, almost every night of the year. This is a fire circle that we had on our land, and we have these on a regular basis. And this is our backyard here, again, just connection to nature all over the place. Another thing that makes us special is just this region we live in. And this is all the Rocky Mountains through here. And then this is all the Colorado Plateau, which is Red Rock Canyons and ancestral Puebloan ruins. This is Moab here with Arches National Park and Canyonlands National Park and Mesa Verde National Park and Bryce and Zion, and the Grand Canyon is just over here. So lots of natural areas. I mean, I probably camp out, almost 2 months a year on average. And there's no way in my lifetime I'll ever explore all this area. This is just some shots of the mountains from around here. This is a group of us from the neighborhood on a hike one day. And this is our local ski resort, Purgatory Ski Resort. And there's been just so many of the Heartwood kids that have, learned to ski there. More Rocky Mountain splendor. And then cross-country skiing. This is pretty close to the community. And here's that Red Rock Canyon country that I talked about. And it's just a few hours away. And so, because of where we live at, like I said, 7,000 feet. On a given day in, let's say, April, it'll be springtime here. If I go up into the mountains, go up to 9,000 or 10,000 feet, then it's winter. If I go over here to the Red Rock Canyons down at 5,000 feet, it's summer. So on a given day, I can have, any one of these environments or, climates. This is, a bunch of the kids at the Canyonlands camp out. And this is by the San Juan River. We do a lot of whitewater rafting. And this is actually a group of us plus a bunch of other friends rafting through the Grand Canyon. And then I just wanted to touch on, working remotely because we're not near a big, metropolitan area. We're in an ideal location. If somebody has a job they can bring with them, we have 50 megabits per second of internet, which is not as fast as you're going to get in Seattle or San Francisco or something like that, obviously, but it's, it's plenty fast to do, business out of the home. Probably about half the people that live here work out of their homes.
That's amazing.
We have a great regional airport about 25 minutes away. And then that town of Durango, which is just a sweet mountain town, about 20,000 people. That's 25 minutes away. And then our little town of Bayfield, just a couple thousand people, is just a couple miles away. It's about 5 minutes. So that's it. So again, this is our website, heartwoodcohousing.com. We've got lots of information there about our community. We also have, a fair amount of information about co-housing in general, and have compiled some various videos in that regard. We also have an extensive section with all of our agreements and whatnot, which we make open to other communities that might, be able to make use of that resource. And then anybody's welcome to send me an email if they want. And this is my email address.
Thank you so much, Mac.
And that's
So
that.
great. Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. Those pictures are just breathtaking.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah, I just love it. I do have a few questions here in the chat. Again, if anyone wants to come forward and talk, we always love to see y'all smiling, lovely faces. So if you want to raise your hand with that little raise your hand button, you can press it and I can pull you in. But until then, we have one question. There's one that talks about the distinction between intentional community and co-housing. And I wanted just to say that co-housing is a type of intentional community. So intentional community, they are communities that have been set with a certain intention. And we have a whole workshop that we do on that, but there's different kinds that they're focused on different things. Eco-village, co-housing, communes, they just have different goals or how they want to live. And so all of them are intentional communities, and co-housing is just one of those. And like I said earlier, co-housing is kind of like a neighborhood, but you share a lot in common and you create common spaces together. Let's see. I have one that says, can you talk a little bit about how you manage the livestock and maintain the land?
Yeah. So, well, we've got, two main types of land. We've got the forested land, and our main issue with stewarding that land is fire mitigation. Everybody knows about that. So then the irrigated pasture land, that takes a lot more work because weeds like to grow there a lot more. And so and it's an organic, farm, organic pastures. And so we have a team that's responsible for that. And basically the way we do it is, that team manages that resource, but then none of the animals are owned by the community. The land is owned by the community, but then the people that want to have llamas or pigs or horses or cattle or chickens, goats, sheep, whatever it might be, they own the animals, and then they help to steward the land. But then they're also, they're fully responsible for their own animals. And obviously they get a lot of help from other people because it's a community. And so they're going out of the town for the weekend camping, so who can watch, who can feed the cattle for the weekend, that kind of thing. That happens all the time. But then they arrange for the butchering. Well, they don't like to use that word, actually, harvesting of the cattle. And then, and then people in the neighborhood will sign up for like a half a steer or whatever it is. But it's basically different, private entities within the community that take care of the animals themselves, but the community takes care of the resource, the land, the greenhouses, that kind of thing.
That's amazing. All right, we have another one. This seems like a simple one. Is it a place that, like, for aging in place?
Yeah, I mean the best thing about our community, and probably any community for aging in place, is the community. When somebody has a fall or has some surgery or whatever, the community learns about it immediately and rallies. So that's probably the most important aspect of it. But we also have been deliberately working on, how can we potentially provide housing for, support people. Like if somebody has to hire, somebody to if they can't live fully independently anymore. We don't have anybody in that situation yet, but obviously we will inevitably get to it. And so we're looking at, various options in that regard. We do have various mother-in-law apartments that could be, suitable for a caretaker to possibly live in and take care of one or more community members that need help. So it's on our radar, but that's basically what we've done about it, I'd say, at this point.
Oh, great. Let's see. What do you do for healthcare?
There's great regional hospitals. They're probably about 15 minutes away between us and that, the big city, Durango, 20,000 people.
Great. Let's see. Can you describe the legal ownership structure of the property? Is it essentially a condominium subdivision with jointly owned share spaces?
Yeah, we're set up very much like a standard subdivision, from a legal and financial point of view. That makes, all the government people happy. It makes the banks happy. So we have a homeowners association. the that we all pay monthly dues to pay for our water system, our septic system, our road system, snow plowing, common house, all that kind of normal stuff. The big difference between the way we're set up as a subdivision and other subdivisions is that the vast majority of our land is owned by the HOA. So it's really just the proportion of land. In a standard subdivision, the private lots would be, quite large, and the HOA might just own the entry gate and the roads or something like that. Whereas for us, the HOA owns, almost all the land, and I own a private lot that's about the size of, maybe a city lot. Not that big, but it's my private little lot, and I've got to pay the mortgage on it and all that kind of stuff.
Great. There are a few more questions, and just so everyone knows in the audience, I am logging all the questions and I will get to them. Some of them seem to like overlap. So maybe you're just asking the same question twice, like for each community. And so that can be like a panel discussion towards the end. So please don't think that your questions aren't getting answered. I have a little document, I'm logging them. But I do want us to get to Fran from Washington Commons and hear about that before we answer some more of these questions. Thank you so much, Mac. That was really wonderful.
Sure. Thank you, Carolyn.
All right, Fran, how are you doing over there?
Fine. Yes, hi, I'm Fran Bowman. I'm a member of Washington Commons Cohousing, which is in West Sacramento, California, right across the river from Sacramento. And I just wanted to say a minute about why I got involved in cohousing. I live in Davis, which is very close by, and I have a suburban ranch style home, but I'm here by myself. My older neighbors have all moved on. And so I'm really interested in moving into a community where I can share activities and just be in an interesting place close to other people that share my interests and values. And we started about 6 years ago with our founding member, Ann Garrity, and she's enjoying ice cream here at one of our local ice cream parlors in West Sacramento. And then we bought our land just a little over a year ago. And it's at the corner of 4th and G in an old neighborhood. It used to be a town called Washington. So we are Washington Commons. Like I said, we're right across the Tower Bridge from Sacramento. So on the other side, you can see the city of Sacramento. And then down in the lower right corner, you can see the Riverwalk Park. It's about 5 minutes from our property. We started our planning with Katie McCamick from Cohousing Solutions. And we have quite a good development team of architects, developers, and Covision Consulting is our marketing consultant. One of our important steps was we visited PDX Commons in Portland. The land that we own is under 1 acre. So we have that distinction from the other cohousing today. We're trying to build our property on about 2/3 of an acre, an infill site, and PDX Commons is the same. It was a vacant infill or vacant urban lot. And we just like some of the design features. We like the common areas, we like the shared terrace, and just the way it was laid out. PDX Commons is a senior property, and we won't be a senior property, but we liked it. So we got involved in a lot of planning sessions with our development team. And one of the important things we did was work in 3 teams to prioritize how we were going to use the common area, which is close to 6,000 square feet. And this is the result of the 3 teams where we all agreed that we needed a dining room and kitchen. And actually we tended to agree on the use of the space. So we'll have a library, we'll have meditation area, of course, mail, laundry, and we have a huge amount of bicycle storage because biking is important to our group. Of course, we celebrated at the end of all that planning. And the outcome was this architect rendering of the property. So this is the corner of 4th and G in West Sacramento. This is the southern exposure. My unit is this one right here. So I'm excited about it. It's not being built yet. We haven't broken ground, but still looking forward to that. And this white part right here is prominent. This is our central dining room and kitchen. And then people will come in right here. Lots of bike parking. And this is the inside view. So this is the common terrace. all of the units either open onto the terrace or they look down. So there are no interior hallways that join the units. You'll come out of your unit and you'll be able to see your other neighbors and connect with them. Then the parking is underneath, tucked under. So all of the units are either on the second floor or above for security purposes. And none of the units are on the first floor. The first floor is entirely common area. We rolled out our plans to the community of West Sacramento at some public meetings, and we showed off our architect renderings. There's Katie. Some of our members and other public people came, and one of our development people talked about the floor plans. And of course, our community is our members. So here's a sampling, not all of our members. We have 14 member households right now. And in order to break ground, we need 28 member households. So we're working on it, but we're proud of a community where we're inclusive, we're welcoming, we're diverse, and we do not have age restrictions. We're all age community. So we're about 5 minutes walk from that Riverwalk Park that I showed you. It's a wonderful park up and down the length of the Sacramento River on the west side. And we have lots of amenities like ice cream and coffee and pizza just in walking distance. We have a boat ramp so you can go boating or you can do kayaking. And on the other side over there is the American River Trail, which is a famous link up the American River. We have community gardens in the neighborhood, and we have Sal's Taco Bar, which is noted for its fabulous tile work. We have River Cats Baseball, which is used for all sorts of community events, and you can see the bridge there over to Sacramento. All of this is within 1 mile of our property. The state of California is planning another park. As you walk from our property would be right around here, and you can walk up this trail, and there will be the new California State Indian Museum, which will be fabulous, fabulous development for the state of California, representing all the tribes. It's going to be great. More biking, can't have too much biking. And we also have a place called The Barn, which is kind of famous, which is a bar, beer parlor, beer garden, and pizza. And it's noted for this fabulous architecture. Again, this is within 1 mile of our property. Here's the bridge that links us to Sacramento. And if you cross this bridge, walking or biking or however you want to, you can get to the Crocker Art Museum, which is open again now with a big show of Wayne Thiebaud, who's a famous California artist. We also have the Golden One Center, which is a basketball venue and just a convention venue. And we also have the historic Amtrak station. So right now during COVID, there are 8 trains a day to San Francisco. So anyone who wants to move from the Bay Area and live in West Sac can easily get back and forth on the train, commuting on the train. So you might ask, how can I join? We'd like to have people start as an explorer, which is a 3-month time, during which you get an explorer orientation handbook and a meeting with members, of course. We have a separate meeting for financial information. And then we invite everyone to attend our business and team meetings that basically are in the planning process for all the functions of Washington Commons. You can make social connections with members and explorers. Right now we're just Zooming, but we're Zooming like crazy. And it's $100 to start. And you can sign up for our newsletter also at our website, which is washingtoncommons.org, or on Facebook. So we welcome everyone to join us, and I'm open to questions.
I'm going to unmute myself. Thank you so much. That was so beautiful. That looks so exciting. I have a question here. How many square feet per unit?
Okay, we have a range of units. I'm going to refer to my notes here. We have basically 4 different floor plans. We have a 1-bedroom, a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and then a variety of floor plans, and a large 2-bedroom, 2-bath. So the range of square feet, the smallest 1-bedroom is 639 square feet, and the largest unit is 1,294. which is about the size of my house right now.
Oh, great.
We have about, I think I mentioned, nearly 6,000 square feet of common area, including guest rooms and a craft room. These are rooms that, you know, you wouldn't need to have in your own apartment. We would be sharing those.
That sounds wonderful. And what's the cost of these units?
So the range, of course, we're working on a market rate, a new construction in Sacramento. The range is between $400,000 and $770,000.
And are there like monthly costs also to join the community?
There will be, but we haven't settled on what those will be yet because a lot relates to design. For example, we just recently decided that we were only going to have electric only and no gas. So these decisions affect the community fees.
Okay.
I would think they would be nominal since it's a very small area. We don't really have land to maintain. We just have the common areas, the parking to maintain.
Sure. That's amazing. And someone asked, what are you doing to attract younger people and families with children?
So we are so close to downtown Sacramento that we're expecting that a lot of our members will be people who work either in downtown Sac or even on the West Sac side. There are several state office buildings that are on our side of the river. So we're going to be tapping into working single people and families. And we have wonderful units available. So now's the time to join because the choice is good.
That's awesome. Do you have any rental options or do you have to have a purchase?
No, we haven't decided that yet. Right now we're looking for another 14 member households to buy in.
Mm-hmm.
We probably will have rental options, but we haven't, as a community, we haven't decided that yet.
How many I want to ask this question. How many units are planned for the whole project?
Oh, I forgot to mention that. There are 35 units altogether.
Okay.
And all of them are flats. So you see here, each unit is a single story. And we also have an elevator. So as regards aging in place, which is a question that comes up a lot, these units are designed and the common areas are designed to be 100% wheelchair accessible.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Past the $100, do people need to pay anything to participate or invest anything else other than the cost of the unit?
No. The $100 is our Explorer fee, just to have people join and receive the handbook and the meetings and those opportunities.
Great.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. Oh, Neil says that he's happy that you model it after PDX Commons. That's great.
Yeah.
What about shared meals? Do you have any shared meal plans?
Well, we have a full kitchen. We will have a full institutional type kitchen and seating for all the members to come. And it should be easy. One of our things that's unique about our project, of course, is we're one building. So we'll be right down the hall or right down the elevator from every apartment, the dining room. We haven't settled on how often we'll be having our meals.
Okay.
But we're equipped to do all of that.
Wonderful. All right. Well, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to lead us. I do see there's a few other questions coming in. Some of them seem to be kind of panel questions. So I'm going to leave those to when we get to like the full panel questions after I ask a few questions myself. So I have my little list here. And my first one is as a panel. And so y'all can just pop in and answer as you like. So in what ways is it beneficial or not to live in a co-housing community, especially during the COVID pandemic? I'll give you all a second to think about that.
Well,
sure, good.
We're not living together yet, but what I've found is that just creating the co-housing together has formed a very close community, close friendships. And I find that we're really checking on each other often. There's some of our members that live alone. It's certainly changed the way we do tours of the property. COVID we used to be able to have everybody gather in the common house for the beginning of the tour, but now we don't do that anymore. We try to do more of an open house with people arriving at different times, and do it by appointment. I have given quite a few tours virtually, which originally was for people that were out of state, but now it's people who live close enough to come. I can imagine, and I would think Mac can talk about this more than me or Fran. I can imagine that maybe you're doing less in your common house, Mac, than you used to as a group.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly true. Our common house is not used for any group gatherings now. You know, we had been doing a lot of outdoor group gatherings, you know, through the summer and the fall. But now with the colder weather and the big surge of COVID cases, we're not even doing that so much. But, you know, like Marie said, just the community fabric, everybody's kind of checking on each other, and you know, we've got each other's backs. That's you know, super valuable. You know, probably the most valuable thing is just that we're, you know, a rural location, and so, you know, when I go hang out with my friends, you know, I can still do that because we take hikes and we go skiing, and, you know, we don't go to bars, we don't go to restaurants normally anyway, hardly, you know, most of our life is outdoor anyway. So we're able to keep doing that quite a bit. And then with the, you know, the sunny weather and stuff, is, you know, we can be outdoors most of the time. But from a community perspective, it's just that sense of, you know, caring for each other that is part of the community fabric all the time.
So I wanted to say one of the things that appealed to me when I started in co-housing, investigating it, was the group decision making. And we've made a very smooth transition to having all of our business meetings and our planning sessions on Zoom. And we follow consensus process in our community. And the idea that we all got together, we still all get together to plan the property, to plan our functions, and to decide together and consensus what we want to do together and how we want it to be structured even or built, is really energizing. And there's still a lot of that to do. So we're just in the middle of, we finished, we did deliver our plans to the city of West Sacramento. So the plans on paper are done, but the planning for functions and events and so forth is still coming.
Yeah, I can definitely understand the Zooming for community events and not seeing your community as often, especially now that it's getting colder. That's exactly what happened to us here at Dancing Rabbit. Outside events were happening, and then it's now like you just don't see as many people anymore. And so it's a different experience for sure, even in community. All right, I have another question, which I think all of you can answer for sure, is what advice do you have for people who are considering joining community for the first time? Marie.
Well, let's see. You should investigate as many as you can. So getting involved with intentional communities or co-housing association, you know, these national associations is a really good idea. And if there are properties close by, you should go and visit them. And that's how I found out about PDX Commons. I went to a convention in Portland, and one of the offers was a tour of PDX. So I went, and, you know, I was really impressed with how they had worked it out. And it was a selling point for me.
Yeah, I would agree. Going to other co-housing communities and getting tours just to see what they're like. I think you should decide where you want to live. Obviously, we're in three different places here. So decide where you want to live, if you want it to be urban or rural. You know, what are you looking for in terms of your daily lifestyle? Because our three communities, you're going to have a lot of friendships, and you're going to have a lot of opportunities for doing things, you know, within your co-housing neighborhood. But what do you want outside your co-housing neighborhood? You know, where do you want to work? Where do you want to play? So I think those things are important. And looking at the vision and the values of the community that you're investigating, for sure. I think the main reason we have lost people is because of the prices of our homes. And my guess is, Fran, that you're not getting younger members because they can't afford the prices. They haven't been working long enough to have that down payment. And that's what we have found too. In fact, most of our affordable housing is going to either younger people who have never owned a home or older people who are retired and on a fixed income. So you really have to investigate the costs for yourself too.
Yes, we have in the Sacramento, between San Francisco and Sacramento, there's a lot of pressure to leave San Francisco because of housing costs. So there has been an influx of people from the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, to Sacramento, because Sacramento is viewed as a lower cost area than San Francisco. So it's interesting the change that's going on.
Yeah, and there's a Ben Franklin quote I love. He's talking about marriage, but he says, go into marriage with your eyes wide open. And then once you get in there, keep them half shut. The idea being, when you go into a co-housing community, well, if you go to an established community, there's certain advantages of that, in that, you can see how the community really functions. I think a lot of communities, they form, and it's this incredibly arduous process that takes years and years and years and takes such a toll. And I think there's a sense that, we've arrived and now it gets easy. But I think it's kind of analogous to, pregnancy. The pregnancy is awfully hard, but then when the baby arrives, that's when the real work starts. And I think there's a lot of communities that really struggle with getting along with each other. I mean, there's so many analogies between living in community and marriage in my thinking, that you really have to find a community that can do conflict resolution well, because there is going to be conflict there. And I think that surprises people. I think people, they think, we're going to be with a bunch of like-minded people, and they're all so groovy and wonderful, and they like the same kind of wine I like, and they have the same politics I have, and we're just going to get along. What could go wrong? And inevitably, things go wrong. And so you want a community that has a culture that knows how to deal with that stuff and has dealt with it, and can come out the other end, and people still like each other, and people are still happy to live there, and they still are really nurturing that community fabric. It's not just a bunch of buildings that had a dream, and that dream has gone away. And I don't want to say that, being part of a new forming community isn't a wonderful thing too, because that's a fabulous experience too, to be part of that creation of the dream, and then to the realization of the dream. You're never going to be able to replace that if you join an existing community. But I mean, there's good and bad of all those things, but that ability of a community to sustain over the long term, the good relations, the warmth, you want to find a community that's paying attention to that in early stages and has gotten that figured out, hopefully, if they're an established community.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, especially talking about the whole marriage and conflict res. And someone in the comments put that nonviolent communication is what they use for conflict resolution. And we do here as well in Dancing Rabbit. And I've been known to say several times to several people that, moving to a community was like getting married to a bunch of people I didn't know yet. And so you choose to spend your life with these people in a very intimate way. And so, yeah, just like you bicker with your brothers and sisters or your parents, you will with your neighbors. So I think conflict res is a really big cornerstone of being able to be successful in community, and finding a community with solid base in that is finding a healthy community that you can live in. I'm going to go ahead and see if anyone wants to raise their hand, ask questions. I know that some of you have asked questions in the chat and stuff like that in the Q&A, but if anyone would like to raise their hand, I can pull them forward. It looks like Jim. I'm going to pull you in. Let's see, Jim. If you want to unmute yourself and you can go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, so thanks so much for a great presentation. I'm with Riversun Cohousing in Eugene. We're not built yet, and we're making before construction decisions about whether we include gas or do we just not have gas in the community at all and just go all electric. So what are your thoughts about that?
Well, our property is in West Sacramento, and Sacramento have both passed resolutions to make new construction all electric, no gas. So we're not having any. We had the same conversation, and then we did some research on induction stoves and stovetops, and we just decided to go that route.
We decided, well, we were kind of forced to decide against gas because we have no gas lines in the small town of Bethany. We do have one gas stove that will be in the commercial kitchen in our common house, so that will use propane, but everything else is going to be electric. So we have, mini splits, air source heat pumps for heating and cooling, and we do have passive solar construction, so the buildings stay pretty warm in the winter without doing much. And all our roofs are facing south, so people can put up solar panels if they want to later on. And we can have solar on the common house also. And we did think about the negativity of using gas, that electric just seems better at this point in time. And we can certainly use an electric supplier that's doing solar or wind, and make a choice that way that seems cleaner.
Did you want to answer anything to the electric, Mac?
Well, I can just say that in phase one, which we built 20 years ago, we spent $60,000 and brought a natural gas line in, versus having a bunch of propane tanks. Because certainly at that time, heating with natural gas was a lot less environmental impact than heating with electricity or propane. Now with phase two, that'll be a decision that we'll have to face. We live in a great part of the world for, both passive and active solar, because we get so much sunshine. And so, maybe we'll go that route with phase two, but we're not quite at that point of designing out those systems yet. So I'm not sure where we'll end up.
Do you have any solar panels on at Heartwood?
Yeah, we have a number of panels for the community, which power the workshop and the common house. We've got a whole bunch of private panels on people's homes, both for, photovoltaic and for, heating water as well.
Wonderful. All right, Jim, I hope that answered your question. I'm going to pop on to the next. Yeah, you're welcome. All right. And it looks like Josette has a question. I'm going to bring you in. All right, if you just want to unmute yourself, you can go ahead. Sorry, I must have pressed a button. You ended up muted again.
Unmute. Am I unmuted?
There you are.
Okay. My question was, we are a community of people looking for rentals, so we're really not sure how to head into this at all. So we've been researching co-housing and just now intentional housing. And I wondered if we had planned to come to Rocky Corner because we're in New York State and that's pretty close. And then the virus hit and we couldn't do it. Yeah.
Hi, Josette. I think I emailed with you. It's Marie.
Okay.
So we are not planning any rentals because we don't have anybody to buy those homes to turn around and rent them out.
Right.
So that's just the way things are going with our community. I'm sure there's other communities that have ended up with rentals, but maybe Mac, if you have any rentals, how did they end up being rentals? Who purchased, who owns the homes?
Right. Yeah, and we do have rentals here. I mean, we have larger homes than I think most co-housing communities, certainly most urban co-housing communities. Our homes probably range from about 900 square feet to 2,700 square feet, something like that. And So most of our rentals, well, like one of our model homes was intentionally built with the basement being a mother-in-law apartment with super big windows. And I mean, it doesn't look like a basement when you're down in there, but anyway, it's a 2-bedroom, mother-in-law unit. So there's several homes in the community that have that. On occasion, somebody will be traveling for an extended period and rent out their entire home. But mostly it's a room here or a room there and a mother-in-law type situation. Now, before we built phase 1, we did a big road trip of there was the whole Boulder area, the Front Range was kind of a hotbed of early co-housing in the 90s. And so we were able to tour a bunch of communities, and we went to some communities, especially one near Boulder, where a number of rentals were happening, but people were renting units there or rooms there, more was the case, just because they wanted to be near Boulder. They didn't really have any interest in the community. And so we, said from the beginning that anybody that lives here, we want them to be an active member of the community. That's the expectation. We don't want somebody to live here just because it's pretty land or a pretty house or whatever the other reason might be, that, they would be an active member of the community. So that's our expectation for people, for the renters. But then on the other side, we treat all the renters as full members. They fully participate in all community decisions, whether they're financial or otherwise, with the very rare exceptions of some legal things we have to do where we revise covenants and then the covenants dictate, the homeowner signs right here, that kind of thing. But generally speaking, all our community decisions, all work expectations, all common meals, anything we do as a community, any expectations we have for owner members, we have those same expectations for renter members. And I think that served us really well. The renters here are fully integrated into the community.
Yeah, so then people are invested, yeah.
Yeah, and they don't feel like second-class citizens or anything like that.
The other thing that we've been trying to do, Josette, at Rocky Corner is to match people up. If you've got 2 single people who wouldn't mind buying a home together and sharing a home together, can we help make those connections for people?
That's a good idea.
House sharing is it's a big thing these days.
It
nationally.
is. It is, yeah.
So that's always a possibility too, and that's the very first house I owned was a 2-family house that I bought with a friend, and we had our own apartments. We wouldn't have been able to afford by ourselves.
Yeah, and we're looking at possibly building what we were calling a pod house in phase 2 as well, where maybe it has, several suites within the house, which is basically, a bedroom and its own bathroom, and then shared kitchen, shared living room for, multiple, adults to live there, unrelated adults.
Yeah, that's kind of the situation I live in. I live in a building, and we all have our own rooms upstairs, and there's a shared kitchen downstairs, shared bathrooms. It makes it affordable. So yeah. Well, thank you so much for that question, Josette. I'm going to move on to our next one. It looks like we have Beverly. Beverly, I'm going to pull you in. All right, all you do is unmute yourself. There you go.
I have kind of a general question. I've been looking at co-housing for a long time, and several of the groups I've been involved with didn't succeed. And one of the groups, it won't be built for at least 1 or 2 years. And I'm 73 years old. And have I aged out? Because the thought of waiting 1 or 2 years to go into a place, and I love the idea of picking where you want to live. I live in Salt Lake City, Utah. I think it's the center of the universe, and haven't really found, we only have, I think, 1 or 2 co-housings in the whole state. And I've looked in New Mexico, and I've looked in Washington, and So my question is, have I aged out? And I'm a committed dog person. So I have to be somewhere where I can have at least one dog. So those are my two general questions, and I just need feedback from you all. And I want to say I've learned a lot from you all, so thank you very much. This was a good presentation.
Well, Marie and I are both shaking our heads. No, you haven't aged out, because I'm up there myself, and we're going to have a lot of dogs. I think we have a lot of small dogs, but they seem to get along. I don't know how big your dog is, but we don't have any size. We don't measure the dogs. We just have, and I have cats, so it's going to be fun. We're going to have all that.
Okay, that's good to know.
Beverly, I would probably recommend that you join an existing co-housing community rather than trying to form a new one.
Right.
It has taken us 15 years, so that might be a little too long for you. Not that all of them take that long. It looks like Franz is moving along much faster than ours did. You know, maybe somebody in FIC can talk about this. There's a co-housing community called N Street in California, which a bunch of people just bought up a neighborhood of houses and then designated one of the houses as a common house. So I don't know if that's something that you could do in Salt Lake.
That happens to be in Davis, where I live. Yeah, they gradually bought all the adjoining houses on a block and took out the fences in the backyards. So that's a concept. I think they each person still owns the house. They just decided that they wanted to join the backyards and have common activities.
Yeah, that's amazing. It looks like Neil in the chat is also saying that there's some listservs on a co-housing site, cohousing.org. And so that might be another way to view.
Oh, I look through you and them quite frequently. So, but mostly it means I need to move to another state, and I wouldn't leave the West. I think it's just as beautiful as Mac presented, and I couldn't, we too have many days of sunshine. I couldn't sacrifice that.
Understandable. It looks amazing out there.
Yeah. Well, I'd invite you to check out Heartwood if you want. I mean, we're not, we don't have a house ready for you to move into. We're hoping to build summer of 2022. I know that's not right away. It is, if, the life here for kids is really wonderful. I mean, it's better for kids and dogs than it is for the adults. The adults have to figure out the conflicts and make the decisions and pass the budget and all that stuff. The kids just get to live it, the dogs. And we actually have, I mean, I consider my dog one of the luckiest dogs around because it gets to run free. Well-behaved dogs here just get to run loose. And, and we've got that all figured out because we're a co-housing community where we assign various particular areas for poop patrol. So all the dog owners make sure everything stays all picked up and the dogs just get to, run around and play with their friends all day, their doggy friends and their human friends.
I appreciate your responses to that, particularly Fran, in the building you're putting together, because I was a little reluctant to ask about dogs. So thank you very much for understanding that.
I would also say, Beverly, that before we even broke ground for Rocky Corner, we were told that we really needed to have a pet policy in place.
Right.
It was one of the first things that we had to do a consensus meeting around a pet policy.
Right.
Because people are really, really attached to their pets, and you have to kind of make sure everybody's happy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Beverly. Yeah, I would have to say that we just went through a pet policy here at Dancing Rabbit, and that was a lot of conversation because I think we revised it, and so yeah, that was a big deal for us here. So pets, whew, that can cause some conflict. All right, I'm gonna bring in Angela to come and ask a question. If you just want to unmute yourself.
Hey, everybody. Can you hear me, Carolyn?
Yeah, go ahead.
Great. Well, this has really been wonderful. You guys are just such an inspiration. I'm part of a small group that includes Josette. And we have been working, well, probably for about a year. And I have been involved in many community projects. And while I would love to see this get off the ground for us, it really feels like I don't know if this is something, especially after tonight. I mean, I realize it takes years and years, to get something off the ground. I just think that I don't want to have to reinvent the wheel. Like, you guys are already doing like this amazing job in all these different parts of the country. I guess my question comes back though to there just really is not much going on in New York. I scour, Facebook, and I'm, trying to find somebody else who's further along than us. We have probably 8 serious people, but there again, none of us really, after taking a consensus, none of us really wants to put our retirement into buying another house. We'd rather have our money, invested and just have somewhat of a fixed, expense line, and have it be a very simple way of living instead of having home ownership again. So anyway, I don't know if any of you can speak to that. We would love, there again, it's a catch-22. We don't know how to move forward if we all want to rent. Is there a builder out there that would be willing to set up this neighborhood? I love the idea that people bought that whole neighborhood up, right? But how does it work if we really don't want to purchase, if we really just want to rent at this point? Thank you. Long question. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't have any experience in real estate development other than, developing Heartwood 20 years ago. But I would think it would be a really long shot to find somebody that would develop a co-housing, building or neighborhood, and then want to continue to own the whole thing and lease it out to tenants. I think the more likely possibility would maybe to be, like what we're talking about with the pod house, or what, Fran and Marie have talked about, where maybe, the house sharing kind of deal, where maybe some of the, because there's going to have to be people that buy the house and own the house. And so, if you've got some people that are willing to do that, and then, then maybe the people that don't want to, go back into home ownership, they could be tenants and housemates of those people. That seems like the more, likely possibility to me.
Angela, I could hook you up with, we have a housing consultant his name is David Burdo of Housing Enterprises in Connecticut. And he was the one who helped us get the money from the state for our affordable units. He's created a lot of housing in Connecticut and in New England. So he might be a good person just to tap into and see if he has any ideas. But I'm wondering about your thinking a little bit. I don't understand why you would want to be wedded to a monthly rental fee that could go up rather than a monthly mortgage fee that might stay the same.
Especially now since interest rates are so low.
Yeah. And the other thing I'm thinking is, there's many of us at Rocky Corner that realize that this is our last home. This is a place where we're going to be aging. So how do we help each other age together rather than having to go into some kind of assisted living, which is also extremely expensive at least in my area of Connecticut. So, is there a way of sharing home health aides and continuing to have a lot of meals together as we age, in the long run, would you save money? And in the long run, would you have a house to leave to your heirs?
Yeah, I think, that's speaking to, each of us wanting to really simplify, start the simplification process, right? And not have to have, all that maintenance. And, actually my business is property management. So I'm thinking I'm probably going to have my hand in it anyway, in some way, but I just don't want to, we kind of want to simplify and have it be a lighter load, this next step. Most of us are in our 50s and 60s. So it's a very intentional decision to want to live together and to want to be in community, live in community. But anyway, I think what I've heard, probably the solution would be for us to be either purchase a home together, a number of people to purchase together, or like you were saying, Mac, this pod house, that feels right. We're all ready to kind of like, minimize all of our belongings and just kind of get into the next stage of wanting to just like, when we can travel and just simplify things, not have it be all of this, responsibility anymore,
Can I answer that? Can I speak to that for just a second? So Angela, I would say that co-housing, especially at Rocky Corner, you would be buying a brand new home. So that decreases the upkeep right away. It's not falling apart yet. And the heating and cooling system is very simple. And then I would say the other thing is with co-housing, you are sharing the responsibilities of the upkeep. You're not doing it by yourself. So, and maybe Mac can say something to that, but I think it's a shared responsibility, which is much different than, owning your own home by yourself.
I'm going to jump in for a second because I do want to say that, and Neil even said, like, you can put a classified ad up looking for what you need also. But I did want to mention that one of our board members, Jana Ludwig, she actually wrote a book recently about community. And it's a cooperative culture handbook, but she actually started a commune. I mean, I know you're not interested in starting a commune, which is fine, but she started a commune in an old, I think it's like a Victorian style home, and she's out in Laramie, Wyoming. And so they bought a house together, and everyone basically, it's income. I think they're working on income sharing and stuff like that. But I think right now it's still in the room rental stage, but it could be something like that, buying a home that has large. And I know that Cynthia, one of our board directors, she's actually on the call right now, but there was a community that she mentioned that's a co-housing community, and it's as if they bought several homes, but there's several people living in the home, so they're like co-living, and it's a co-housing kind of thing. And so that isn't abnormal. I mean, that's like, I have a friend also in Minneapolis, and he owns a house and rents out all the rooms and has created a mini community in his home. I think it's like 4 or 5 bedrooms or whatever. It's a nice like 3-story building. So that's also like pretty normal out there for what it seems like. I live in a co-living building where someone owns the building and we all renting rooms. So instead of doing it that way, it could be something you all buy in together and can simplify that way.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, there's a rental. Looks like Neil put it into the link in the chat about homes and rental and stuff.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's a really great question. All right. I'm going to pull in Lee. Lee, looks like Lee has a question. You just want to unmute yourself. You can go ahead and ask Lee.
Hi, thank you all. I just moved from Maine to New Mexico, and the prices of all co-housing units throughout the country, every conversation, you can't get in for under $400,000 to $500,000. Who at 72 years old, first of all, can take a mortgage out? So what I've been looking into is I'm now living in a 286 square foot tiny house. I'm surrounded by 4 horses and a donkey that I'm renting in Albuquerque. And I've been trying to get a tiny house community together. So there's actually a meetup group that meets once a month. So it can be Googled Tiny Houses Albuquerque Meetup Group. And it's a very practical solution because I don't think this is the end of pandemics. I think that living in a group house with other people of unknown origins or whatever is a bit scary to me, to be honest with you. So I'm surprised that there's not more interest in the tiny house movement. Zoning is a problem in most cities. Portland, Oregon is one of the few cities that allows people to build individual houses, multiple homes on a piece of land. But so I'm open to some comments or suggestions or some leads into a tiny house community that you might know of. That's it, simple.
Sure. I know that right now that for us at FIC, we're starting to put in a section on tiny house communities. Thanks, Neil, for putting that link in the chat. So we're putting in a section on our website because tiny house communities are a thing. They're happening, and we're realizing that. So it is something that is going up on the FIC website at ic.org. And I think that I can't remember the link, and if I can, I will add it to the chat, or if Neil remembers the link. I think there is a tiny house community website that has also started recently, and we're hoping to work with them, I think, to bring those communities onto our website so that like more people will know about them and access them, because it is a thing. Like, Lee, you're not doing something, that dream is not abnormal. Like, the people out there are doing it. I know that there are even like veteran tiny house communities in, I think it was San Antonio, one got built. And so that is definitely something that's happening around the country. And I think that also does make sense, because it is very hard living for me, because I live in a co-living house where we do like share things, and there are people who are older, and there are concerns, and there has been conflict over fear of the pandemic and how everyone interacts. And so yeah, I can see the tiny house movement being really great and vital for those kinds of things, and for people to feel secure and safe.
And you know, the cost, there's so many new modular homes being built all over the world. You can get into a house for between $50,000 and $75,000, which is pretty incredible.
That's true. Oh, thank you, Cynthia. Cynthia put in the chat, search tinyhousevillages.com is one of our partners. So thank you for that.
Thanks.
So yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you finding that link. I knew it was out there.
Okay.
So yeah, it's definitely an awesome thing to look into and to be part of. Did anyone in the panel wanted to talk about that? I don't know if any of y'all have experience with the tiny house movement or knowing about that. All right. Well, thank you so much for your question, Lee. I'm going to move on to Ken. So I'm going to bring in Ken. Give me 1 second. And Ken, if you just want to unmute yourself, you're more than welcome.
Okay.
Question.
Yeah, we're in Central Virginia, Autumn Sun community. I own the property, and we have 3 studios. I have been informed by zoning that they don't like tiny houses, but we can have all the studios we want. So remember your semantics. I have a house that works well to share. I have been several years working on trying to figure out how to develop this property to its full potential. And that's going to take some community to do that, because I'm 75 now. So I have noticed that there, even in Virginia, which is a pretty slow to adopt area, although it's picking up quite a bit, there's a lot of Facebook groups on tiny houses, and they're all over the map as far as knowledge and awareness of what it really takes. And I have often thought that they really need to be much more connected to FIC. So I'm glad to see Tiny House Villages, which I am listed on, despite not liking that name, Tiny Houses. So there's a huge need to coordinate our efforts here. I am very sensitive to the comments about costs. I've been an owner builder all my life. And I would like to continue that. So my effort here has been to develop some low-cost housing and get some people that are interested in building stuff. And that is starting to come together. COVID has certainly complicated that effort a little bit. But despite that, we actually have several new people coming in. With 6 acres, you're pretty well able to isolate yourself. So we're not planning on a bunch of shared meals, although as much as we can. So we'll see how the vaccine goes. Huh? Anyway, thank you. This has been interesting.
Thank you so much, Ken. I appreciate the comments. Did you have a question you wanted to ask in addition to that?
No, that's all right. I got too many thoughts swirling around in my mind to focus on a question.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing. That was wonderful.
You've been good, Carolyn.
Thank you, Ken. I do have a question that was asked earlier that I really thought was kind of important and for all 3 of y'all. So the question was, what do you feel made your community successful at seeing it through to construction, since so many communities falter before getting to construction? So what do you think was that success point for you, or points?
Yeah, well, I can talk about that a little bit. Yeah, I mean, it's not any one thing, and that's why so many communities fail. You've got, several big things that have to come together. You've got to attract enough people, and as we've, heard, until you get enough people, you can't be spending a lot of money, and you got to be really smart about money. I mean, it's really an uphill battle to get a community started, because most people that are attracted to community are, I don't want to, stereotype, but it's a lot of kind of, caring people that, I forget the term, the creatives, something, whatever, but it's, school teachers and nurses and social workers and those kinds of people. And they're saying, all right, well, let's get together and put together, a $12 million real estate project. And, so the skills to do the financial piece are, you got to be really know how to run a very complex business. The government approvals are incredibly onerous. I mean, that's why I think Dancing Rabbit is in Northeast Missouri, because you can get away from that kind of craziness a little bit, that, it's so restrictive in so many places. Even us, we're in, rural Colorado. And still we're going to spend much more time jumping through regulatory hurdles than we will actually building the thing. So the money, the government regulations, the attracting enough people, any one of those is a make or break issue. And then being able to develop the people skills, in order to hold the group together once you attract people, because that's it's very challenging through the development process to have the setbacks and the disagreements, and you got to keep, soldiering on together. So it's a combination of a number of absolutely critical aspects that have to come together and work for a community to succeed, I think.
Yeah, I wanted to say I support all of that. And I think in our case, this happened before I got involved, but we had about 6 really devoted people who pooled their money to buy the land. And once those people had bought the land together, they were jumping off, like a vaulting board to get the rest of us invested. Now, they still own the land as a separate corporation. And at the point that we take ownership, we'll make that transfer. But that was one factor. And then we also invest money in consultants. And I think building a really strong consultant team and interviewing those people in advance and seeing that they're on board with what you're doing is really important. So, for example, when we interviewed architects, we went through 2 rounds. And one of my important points was that the architect team needs to agree to meet with us for so many meetings and listen to what we say, and then put that in the plan. So we talked to them ahead of time and we said, this is what we want. And they said, okay, that's what we'll do. And then from then on, it was fine. And that's what they've actually done. So the plan that we have is the plan that we want. And it's of course still in development, but I would say, try to do it yourself without consultants or without this, especially in an urban environment. We were lucky because we chose a city that's motivated to have development, and they're trying not to put too many barriers in our way. So they're cooperative. So that's good too. But I think that might be accidental because we just happened to choose the land in that town.
I would agree with Fran that, well, so being able to figure out what the barriers are going to be is very difficult. And that's where the professionals that you hire can really be helpful. I actually wrote an article for one of the FIC books, which is titled The Rocky Road to Rocky Corner. And when I wrote that, there were two things that I identified that I thought really helped us move our project forward. One was hiring a housing consultant, and the other was taking on the governance model of sociocracy rather than typical consensus. Since then, I'm starting to think that even though the co-housing model typically says that it's the community members that are going to create the community, I think that our group should not have been the developers. We are the developers. And it's not that we haven't done well. I mean, I think if anything, I have learned so much in this process and become a person who's not so shy, who can run meetings, who can be given a job and go off and do it because that's what needs to be done. So I think determination, willing to work really hard, and getting some good professionals and trying to keep the costs down right from the get-go. You know, don't hire the really expensive architect, hire an architect that maybe knows co-housing already. So things like that are really, really helpful. But we came across so many things that were unexpected even by our housing consultant. And so, you know, choose rural Maine, don't choose Brooklyn, New York.
Thank you so much for all of your insights on that. That's so interesting to hear like how different success comes to each community. I did have a question just for you, Marie. Someone asked, who bought your community's land? Are y'all a 501(c)(3)? How's that work?
We are not a nonprofit. We pulled our money and bought the property together, and it's the sale of all the houses that's supposed to reimburse the money that we put forward.
I think that's similar to what my community around here did as well.
Yep, and it sounds like it's the same as France.
Yeah. How did y'all how do you have your land scheduled, Mac? Because I know you said the HOA owns the land. So how does that work for your community?
Yeah, and that was not entirely accurate. So actually, we started, my wife and I, started way back, 25 years ago or whatever. And we were working with the group getting the project off the ground. And, we had money. I used to run a business that did pretty well. And so I was able to come into the project with both money and business experience. And so we bought the land, and we had intended to only buy, like 60 or 80 acres for about 250,000. And we looked at hundreds of pieces of land, literally. And that's probably going to happen to, most every group is going to look at hundreds of pieces of land to find something that works. But it was a 360 acre piece of land for $700,000. And so we had intended to just do, phase one, split off a little chunk of land and then divest ourselves of the rest of the land. The county, wouldn't allow that. We ended up having so my wife and I still own a portion of land. And so we're going to actually, be the entity that develops, phase two, but it's very much a collaborative community process because it's an expansion of our existing community. So it's a community endeavor, but on the legal side, or the financial side, it gets a little bit tricky that way, but we're still invested in it after all these years. The community did buy a portion of the land to develop phase one. And we formed a subchapter S at that point. And you want to set up some kind of a development corporation. Now I've got a little LLC set up for this development. And then that corporation, whatever it is, does that development business. It runs a little business for a few years, creates this real estate development. And then like our development corporation 20 years ago, it did what it was supposed to do. It built all the buildings and sold them all out and, deeded the land to the HOA that was going to stay in the HOA. And then that development corporation folded and all those assets were turned over to the HOA. And that HOA is the legal entity that now is the right type of entity to manage an ongoing neighborhood. And so then once my little development company I've got going right now develops phase two, it will fold. And, then all the land, the excess land will be deeded over to the HOA as well. And then in fact, the reality will be that the HOA does own all of the land except for the private little lots, that each household owns.
That's amazing. That's a really interesting way to go about doing it. I find that, really intriguing. I do have one. I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions, but I have one question that was in the Q&A, and this is for all three communities. And it says, do any of your communities have spaces set aside for religious or spiritual practices?
We have 360 acres for that. I mean, we have a lot of people that, we affectionately consider, kind of a bones and feathers, spirituality. I mean, people are very tied to the land, and we, the fire circles have, definite, spiritual overtones to them. We have a meditation yurt. We have a spiritual expression agreement, which basically says, we welcome expressions of all, types of spiritual diversity. And so we have different things that happen in different places within the community, different, the common house, the yurt, on the land itself.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah, so we don't have a space set aside for that purpose, but we have a room called a quiet room that will be available for meditation purposes and other purposes that people want to use it for. So we made it sure that that space at least is quiet from the rest of the common areas. So that was the concept.
We don't really have space set aside, but any space could be used by anyone. Whether it's the dining room or we have a quiet room also. Even though we don't live on the property yet, we've been gathering for a solstice and equinox celebrations for quite a few years already. So, and we're like what Max said is we welcome everybody, no matter what.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, I think in our community, we also have 280 acres. People do what they want on the land, and we have some spaces that you can use. We have it was originally built as a dance studio hall kind of thing, and people use that as well. And so it's really sweet I like the quiet room idea. That's really sweet to hear about. I don't know if anyone else out in the audience has any questions. Let me check the chat. Let's see. Where's my community located? Oh, we're in Northeast Missouri. So we're in like the top little corner of Missouri. Like we're on the Iowa border, basically. Like what, 30 minutes from Iowa border, something like that. We're really close. So yeah, we're really close to Illinois as well. It's like an hour and a half to Illinois. Let's see. Let's see. As original owner, Mac, did you struggle with any power issues during that dynamic? And do you have to resolve any of them with the whole owning of the property yourself?
No, never. There's never any power dynamic issues in community. Yeah. I mean, that's always an issue. I feel incredibly blessed that the community, has been so supportive, because I was project manager during phase 1 as well. And so I've always had kind of an outsized role in the community. And and we worked with Laird Shaw quite a bit. He's just a marvelous man, marvelous intentional communities consultant. And he's, helped us a lot with, power dynamics, being able to have conversations about differences in power, because there's always going to be differences in power. Down in the pasture, Jack and Rhonda have the most power because they do the most work down there managing the land. They have the cattle and they have the, llamas, but it's a good thing. And the distinction between power over and power with, you want people to have power with, and you want people to have power. It's the ability to get things done. And you want people to have that ability to get things done. What you don't want is power over, where you're using that power to the detriment of other people in the community rather than for the benefit of the community. And then being able to navigate that, because some people are going to, see, well, I'm a power with kind of guy and I'm helping everybody out. And somebody else says, no, you're a power over, dude. You're just feeding your own ego, so you got to be able to, have those conversations, and it definitely comes up. And I think that, there's kind of a founder syndrome that can happen where people that are in that situation of being the founders, having the big financial stake, can get at odds with the community, and they often end up having to leave. And so we've been very aware of that. And that's why I say I feel so blessed that our community, has been so, just mutually supportive. That, the feeling overall, with some exceptions along the way, is that we're all in this together and we're all, trying to make Heartwood better.
That's wonderful. Thank you for answering that. We have about a few minutes left. I just want to let our attendees know, I'm going to drop some links into the chat. We have a feedback form. We'd love to know what you thought of the session. And those links from earlier, from like how to get any books or the coupons or any our merchandise. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to ask this question Claire had. I really like this question. So Claire wrote, what would you do differently if you had your time again? So I'm assuming what would you do differently if you were starting over or could do this from the beginning again? It's a big question.
Well, of course, COVID threw a wrench in the works. So we were steaming along with our recruitment and membership. So I think I might have, if I had to do it over again, I might have put a lot more money into marketing earlier and just really stepped on the gas. But of course, we didn't know COVID was coming. So we're doing that now, because we see the slowing down of the new members. So I might do that. I might budget differently and spend differently.
Well, I think I already said that I would have our group not be the developers, to hire a developer. We hired architects and a construction firm that really said they were collaborative, but have turned out not to be. And I'm not sure how we could have vetted that better. And I don't know. I mean, when you're the first co-housing in a state, people just don't get it. I mean, we're even having problems with, because we are legally a condominium, there are some mortgage lenders who do not want to lend money for people to purchase a condo. If they were purchasing a single house, they could get their mortgage. But if they're purchasing a condominium, they can't. So there's just so many different things that you can't know are coming. But definitely not being the developers, I think, even though we have learned so much doing it.
Yeah, and I would say one thing that comes to mind is that I would invest in the early stages of group formation, much more energy into building group cohesion, building group dynamic skills. My pet theory is that because co-housing was brought to the United States by a couple of architects, Chuck and Katie, who I love dearly. I think that, we have such a debt to them for bringing it here, but there's such a focus early on, I think, in groups. That's a legacy of cohousing being formed by architects, that when groups get together early in formation, it's mostly around design. The common house design workshop, the site design workshop, the private home design workshops. I would hire professionals that have experience in cohousing design and give them a little bit of input about, what you want in the common house, but every damn common house is going to be pretty much the same. You want a dining room and you want, the guest rooms, you want the laundry room. Let them do that and let the group spend the vast majority of their time working with process consultants on how to get along better before you move in and after you move in.
I would agree with that. And I think that's actually something that Rocky Corner did well. One of the first consultants we had was an organizational psychologist. And then we hired C.T. Butler, who wrote about formal consensus. So we did a lot of activities to build community. We used Diana Leaf Christian to build community. And we were told early on, and this was C.T. Butler, you need to write your vision statement. When you write your vision statement, then it's easier to do consensus because you relate everything back to your vision statement. Is this in our vision? Is this what we're working towards? And then everybody has kind of a common document to work off of. And that's super important. I would totally agree that, what's in your common house is, fourth down the list of things to worry about.
That's really great. I really think that all of those reflections, like Claire said, were just so nice to hear. And I want to say we're about at time, and thank you so much for those wonderful questions from everybody and for those wonderful answers. It was so lovely getting to see your communities and how different they are and yet how similar in some ways. And I really appreciated getting to meet all of you and hearing from such different, diverse places in the US too. So thank you so much for joining us. It was such a great panel. I really, really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you very much, Carolyn.
I hope you all have better times moving forward. The pandemic slows down and we can open our communities up again and see you all again sometime. Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone who attended. Thank you all to the attendees. It's so sweet seeing everyone. Oh my God, yes to the cat. Yes to the cat. This is what the internet's for. All right, thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.